Hi, my name is Jesse Durham, and today's video is going to be, is IBC for me? Or perhaps even, who should contact me? Meaning Jesse Durham. So, I would like to say that IBC just is. Let me start there. IBC just is. So whether this is your first video or you've been diving in on the channel, you've already read Nash's book, his second book, wherever you're at in your progression of your journey, okay, because Nash constantly spoke of thinking long range. We're all at some point along our path. So whether you're just now getting started and you just happen on this video for your first one, or you're already on your way, IBC is, it just is. And I believe that you will understand what I'm saying and perhaps have even already realized that he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. He that hath eyes to see, let him see. We're either going to get this or not, now or later, as long as we're willing to be coachable and teachable and we're open-minded and willing to learn, of course. And that again points to another one of Nash's concepts when he said that we can't have that arrival syndrome stunt, progress, obviously. And when I say Nash, I'm talking about R. Nelson Nash that wrote the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. It's everything about the IBC process. He was the creator, the inventor of the idea. And we're going to address the question of, is IBC for me? And naturally, I won't be answering that for you. But as we go through the material of this video, and perhaps with your further study, that'll lead to a subsequent question, which is, should I get in touch with Jesse Durham? Should you get in touch with me? Should you email or text or call or whatever the case may be? So I'll start by asking some questions, and I'll try and do it in a very objective way, and also reflecting back on my own personal memory from how I got to where I'm at now, having practiced the infinite banking concept for years, having established multiple policies, procured multiple policies for myself and for my family, and transitioned from being, customer, client, consumer, to now actively educating and coaching on the subject professionally, while obviously practicing as well, privately, myself, the infinite banking concept. So let's just start looking at some questions that maybe have come to your mind or will come to your mind, and this will be food for thought before you go to your next step. All right, we're going to put out several questions here. I hope that it will be thought-provoking. That is the goal and the purpose here, just to provide some information for you to be able to consume and digest. So let's see, are you a person who feels like you are winning with money and you just want to throw fuel to the fire? You feel like you could go faster, things could be even better. If that's you, again, I would point you originally to Nelson's work. The videos on this channel, of course, a live discussion, whatever it takes for you to vet this idea appropriately. I feel like it can be done quickly, relatively quickly. That could look different for different people. I'll relate my process soon. And yet, I feel like it can be done quickly because it is a simple idea. It's deep. It's the infinite banking concept, right? But it can be done fairly quickly. So, are you already winning with money and you just want to throw fuel to the fire? Or do you feel like you're a hamster on the wheel? Do you feel like you've done a lot of traditional things along a trajectory of, let's say, going to school, getting good grades, getting that furthered education, pursuing a job or a career, and expecting to have success, only to find yourself feeling like that proverbial hamster on a wheel? In either of those cases, I would suggest that somebody is performing the banking function in our life. But you've got to be able to arrive at that for yourself and figure out where you're at as well. Just a status check. How about, do you have people, organizations, entities in your life that you would like to benefit, perhaps more in the here and now, financially speaking, but also after you graduate, which is a term that we use here, after your passing? So would you like to be able to set up a legacy after your time here on this earth to be able to benefit and further some project, some work, something that's important to you? Ask yourself this: are you actually using money intentionally right now? And if you're not, I'm not trying to guilt trip you. I've probably made every error that could be made along the way myself in my evolution along this path, and I'm still going. Or do you have something systematized outside of performing the banking function in your life, and you need to incorporate that into what you're already using, what you're already doing? Because again, somebody's performing the banking function in our life. Somebody is permitting or not permitting us to have access to cash, access to capital, and many different things that we will see in Nelson's work and on this channel. So consider that. Do you have a system in place? Do you not have a system in place? And then, of course, do you want to have a system in place? Do you want to have an entity that you can own and control? Would you rather be the ostrich sticking your head in the sand and just not looking, not touching? Do you have a set it and forget it mindset, whether that's you contribute regularly to some government qualified program, or you've put somebody else in a position to handle your money and make investment decisions for you, and you just, maybe you look at a quarterly statement, but other than that, you just don't even really look at things. Maybe you know whether it went up or down over the last 3 months. Maybe you know whether you've set a mild or some moderate form or a high form of risk in whatever qualified program you may or may not have. Or do you value certainty? Do you value control? And again, I'm not making a judgment one way or another. I know how I've made my personal choice, and it will be obvious in the material that I present here. But again, I'm not here to make decisions for anyone else. I'm here to provide the information and let you decide, where am I at, where do I want to go, and if we can work together, great. That's fantastic, and I hope that this is helpful. So, do you have a set it? And I did. I had a very traditional background as a high school Spanish teacher. When I saw the infinite banking concept for the first time, I had a 401k. My wife had a 401k. I had a state retirement. I was doing things very, very traditionally, as an employee, making qualified program investments, etc. So I can understand that. I can relate to that. And I didn't know much more than the few basic things that I've mentioned here as well. Whereas now I take much more control. I'm aware of the certainty, the guarantees. I'm not taking any additional risk. Which brings me to another question: how are you in connection with the market? Some love it, some hate it, some respect it, some fear it. Wherever you're at right there, do you find yourself thrilled by the volatility, by the extreme highs and the extreme lows, and whatever the case may be there? I know that we could have investors on here. Again, remember, when you're investing, whether you're doing well or not, somebody's performing the banking function even on the investments that you make. So if you're practicing the infinite banking concept, where you own an entity and have a system in place where you could recapture in the event of a loss, you could recapture your principal, that's fantastic. Otherwise you wouldn't. Worth noting. Or you're crushing it and you're doing great things. Again, somebody's performing the banking function on that capital. Do you own it? Do you control it? These are things to consider. And answer for yourself. Find out for yourself. And again, an entity that you own and control, and a system in place where you could recapture the principal and the interest and the gains in a location that you own and control. It's a beautiful thing. So, are you looking to move away from the market? Are you looking to dive deeper on the market? Consider the infinite banking concept in that regard. How about, do you value independence? Do you value autonomy? Would you like to be able to own and control an entity yourself? A properly functioned whole life policy with a mutual company that's paid a dividend for over 100 years through world wars and depressions and recessions, etc., pandemics, etc. Would you rather be in that situation, or would you rather be beholden to some commercial bank, third-party lender, etc., where the red tape, the paperwork, the scrutiny, the unsavory meetings, whatever that may look like in your own past experience? Or moving forward, do you want to have to go through those hurdles, see if you qualify, etc.? Or would you rather be able to put your signature to a paper trail that gives you access to capital that you've systematically placed in a location that you own and control? I'm just saying, food for thought. Somebody's performing the banking function in our lives. Nash proposed that we could bring that back to the me and the you level by using these policies, a system of policies, to be able to finance everything that we're doing in our household, in our business, in our investing, everything that we happen to be doing in our own financial footprint, whatever that may look like. Do you value independence? Do you value autonomy? How about guarantees? How about certainty? We kind of touched on this in mentioning market volatility and asking whether or not that you may be fatigued in exposing yourself to the risk assumed by some government qualified plan or anything connected in the market. If that has fatigued you, do you value then the opposite, which would be certainty, which would be guarantees, such as guaranteed growth offered in a properly structured whole life policy with a mutual company that again also pays dividends? Do you value growth that is certain, that is guaranteed? And perhaps I should have even started with this question, but are you open-minded? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to do what Nash said when he said, rethink your thinking? Are you willing to rethink your thinking? He said that IBC is a paradigm shift. It's looking at the same issue, but from a different angle, from a different perspective. There's a shift in the paradigm, and that is the banking function. So these are some questions that I'm sure there are many more. If you can think of some, comment them, email them. If you want it to be something that's shared just openly on the channel, of course, you could also just directly email or reach me on the phone in that regard. Now, let me share my quick story on how I was exposed to the idea of the infinite banking concept and share a little bit of what that was like for me when I was vetting the idea, having some revelations personally from what I was reading. So I had a friend call me up, excited about this concept of becoming your own banker, which prompted me to read the book, R. Nelson Nash's Becoming Your Own Banker book. I read the book. I ended up rereading the book. I asked some questions of some folks that I found out had been personally practicing the infinite banking concept. I got some answers to questions that I had about my own individual situation. Again, read the book. I've read Nash's second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. I've listened to his audio of Becoming Your Own Banker, the CDs. I might be dating myself a little bit. It's available on MP3 now, of course. But that all started back in 2015 for me. And at the time of this recording, 2021, here we are, years later, policies later. We've probably committed every error along the way that we could have in our progression of becoming our own banker. And we made that transition to, when I say we, my wife and I, of course. In our family, we now have 3 children, whereas we had just had our second one. I'm doing some math in my head now. When I first read the book, and now they're even of the age where, especially the oldest, can say becoming your own banker and a little bit about policies and things. It's a lot of fun. And again, there's intergenerational thinking for you, which Nash was a big proponent of. Long-range thinking, long-range planning, intergenerational planning and thinking. So that's a little bit about our trajectory. So I did benefit from reading Nash's book, rereading Nash's book, having questions answered personally about my case, listening to audios, and just getting a policy and actually paying premiums into a policy that I owned and controlled, having a policy loan that I would use for business purposes, vacations, paying off college loan debt, student loan debt, paying off credit cards, poor decisions that we'd made in the past. But applying this idea of becoming your own banker, actually writing the check, making the just all the mechanics of using a policy that we own and controlled to perform the banking functions for ourselves. To be able to have a place to be able to amass and build up capital that we could deploy for such uses. So that's a little bit about my story. It's important to see where you're at in your trajectory to find out how you will go about vetting. So I would suggest that you read R. Nelson Nash's book. It's a simple read. It's 92 pages, big print, large illustrations. It's a simple subject. It is a simple concept. It is deep. It's the infinite banking concept. But it is simple. And I believe that it can be vetted relatively quickly. Again, I'm accessible via email, telephone. We can schedule a live meeting if you're local to where I am, of course. And, I'd be happy to do a webinar, obviously. But do what it is that you feel is necessary for you to do to arrive at a decision for yourself. Should I be my own banker or not? And we'll be happy to help you along that way. Now, I would like to describe some of what our relationship going forward could look like. I'm not here to sell products like I am here to educate, to inform, to coach, and to mentor. Again, we've probably personally committed every error that we could have along the way, but we've read, we've reread, we've had discussions, we've actually, and I love how Mr. James Nethery will say, somebody who's an active IBC practitioner, it's all conversation till you write a check. And I do remember feeling that for our first policy from my wife and I, the number that we arrived at was an ambitious number. It stretched our imagination. Now, Nelson talks about practicing the infinite banking concept is, really, really applying and utilizing the imagination that you have. And also, it was reasonable. It was a logical number for us. It was a plan. It wasn't a wild thought that we had. So it was a little bit of both. We had a little bit of a dichotomy going on there where we were ambitious and using our imagination and stretching ourselves while still being reasonable and logical about it. And I remember that feeling of writing that check, seeing that process. It was a big number for us then. And then when the time was right and we had something such as student loan debt to pay off, taking a loan from our own policy, having those funds show up direct deposit into our commercial bank, pay that off, repay ourselves, again, following the 3 rules of pay yourself first, pay yourself with interest, and recapture the money, all back into our system. I remember those feelings from that very first policy and utilizing it to practice becoming our own bankers and what that was like for us. So the idea of the infinite banking concept is definitely more caught than taught. And that's another thing that Nash would say often, that it would be caught more than taught. Sure, I benefited, you can benefit from reading the books, listening to the audios, diving in on this channel, having a personal conversation, emailing a question, everything that you need to do to be able to vet this idea for yourself, but it's all conversation until somebody writes a check. That's important to be able to remember. So our relationship moving forward is, I'm not going to tell you a number to pick for yourself. In setting up your policy, it's possible you may be able to set it up where you make monthly premiums to yourself, quarterly premiums to yourself, semi-annual premiums to yourself, annual premiums to yourself. And you need to be the one that comes to a number that can fit some shorter term goals that you have. But also the policy should be correctly structured to be able to facilitate your long range goals. So both. It's not an either or. We don't have to choose. You can do both. Now again, we'll all build out our system. And Nash said that it could take the average person 14 years. Who knows? It could be less or more for you. It could be less or more for me. And yet we can do it. We can completely become our own bankers, where premium will eventually equal our income. Income will eventually equal the premiums that we pay into policies, where we own and control that capital and can deploy it and then receive it back with interest, etc. Be our own bankers. So our relationship going forward is, I'm not looking for anyone to be dependent upon me. I want to be as accessible as I should be. You know, I've been practicing this idea for the long range personally for myself long before I considered doing anything professionally. Same for my wife. And we're looking for independent, open-minded people that are willing to educate themselves. I've got a good friend that says you can't push a dead bear up a tree. So again, he that hath an ear, let him hear. He that hath an eye, let him see. Cast not your pearls before swine. What I'm saying is that I had the motivation within myself when I was exposed to this idea that I could become my own banker. When I saw that that was a possibility for me, and that there had been a book, a literal book written with a plan for the idea, I was the one. I felt the impetus within myself to learn and to dive in and to practice the concept personally. Made mistakes, grow, develop, everything along the way. And here we are. So we're looking for independent, open-minded people. It's very, very vital to be coachable and teachable. And yet your autonomy, your independence should never be in question. It's completely reasonable to expect that you could practice the infinite banking concept, yes, while gleaning the nuts and the bolts to be able to speed up. If I could speed up your process by a year, I mean, if I could save up to 5 years of your learning curve, that would be very, very beneficial. I personally benefited from learning from others that had been practicing this idea longer than myself. Firstly, from Nash, right from his book. What else? A yearly meeting, I feel, is a great idea at a minimum. So again, I'm not looking to disappear on anyone. I practice this concept for myself. My family practices this concept. We, in the beginning, began to organically share our experience with others and even give coaching tips and pointers and just share. And made that transition to be able to do that professionally, which is the whole purpose of this channel. And let me point out here that you're not going to see, advertisements and sponsorships. We're not going to have any interruptions other than my own personal thinking process as I share the information that I want to be able to share to help propel you along the way. So we're looking for what Nash described, just like between ourselves as individuals and the insurance companies, private individuals making mutually beneficial contracts. That's the kind of relationship that I feel is best, where the autonomy and the independence is maintained on your part, but the coaching and the mentoring can flow as well. We're still learning, so join us on the trip here. We're here to educate. We're not here to sell insurance. That's, again, the big part of this channel. We all earn in some way, so that is going to need a conversation. Everybody's dynamics, everybody's situation is a little different. Yes, we can all become our own bankers, and we all have to start somewhere. So again, you have to pick a number that's going to work for you. You should pick a mode of payment that's going to work for you, meaning a timeline you'd like to pay premiums to your policy or policies, quarterly, monthly, annually, semi-annually, whatever you would like that to look at. You need to arrive at a number. Again, I will suggest that it's probably going to be more ambitious than your first impulse, and yet with reason and logic, you should be able to arrive at a number that is suitable both for now and the long-range goals that you have for yourself. And again, that's something that we'd obviously be able to cover in a conversation where we get a policy properly structured for you to facilitate both of those events. You will continue to read. You will continue to learn. I'm going to continue to read and to learn as we go along practicing this concept. So I just want to give an idea of what it will look like moving forward. From the very first time that you email me, or that you give a phone call or send a text message, leave a comment whatever the case may be, wherever we start, as you're vetting this idea and you're asking questions and learning, and we're setting up a meeting to be able to have a conversation to see what your financial plan looks like moving forward, to provide enough education for you to be able to make an educated decision for yourself. So I'm not saying that you have to read Becoming Your Own Banker before you even email, but I believe that those that have ears to hear and eyes to see will read Nash's book. Will read his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. Will email or set up a phone call or a webinar or a Zoom call so that we could discuss your personal situation and see how you could best begin or add to. Of course, we have folks that are already actively practicing the infinite banking concept, already have multiple policies here that tune into the channel, of course, as well. We're an educated bunch. And I'm not saying that you have to start. I didn't start being a master of the infinite banking concept, but I did start. I knew enough, I vetted the idea enough to know that I did want to become my own banker. And we practiced and learned and read and talked and discussed and planned and mastermind along the way to where we are now, coaching and teaching folks how to do the exact same thing for themselves and for their families, for their business and their investing, and everything that looks like for you. Now let me make some qualifying statements here. When considering, should I practice the infinite banking concept? Should I contact Jesse? If you've seen something on this channel or read Nash's book, you've started diving in on this idea of becoming your own banker. Because I know we all have these people in our lives, our cousin or church member, somebody who's got their insurance license and they write insurance. That's fantastic. Again, we all have those people in our lives. I would suggest that when you do arrive at the decision to become your own banker and you're looking for someone to construct you a properly structured policy for the banking purpose with the correct company, a company that's been in business for over 100 years, paying dividends for each one of those years through recessions, pandemics, world wars, government shutdowns, whatever. You don't want to be in a position of having to educate your agent on the infinite banking concept. That's my suggestion. My suggestion is that you would want an agent that would be able to accelerate your learning curve by having practiced the idea for themselves and not just from being in the insurance industry. I'm not trying to disparage insurance agents. It is what it is. It's a big industry. But you don't want to be in a position where having to educate and expose your professional, your financial professional on a concept that you're looking to practice. Food for thought, that is my suggestion. So the question remains, should you contact me? Is IBC for you? I believe that if you are willing to read Nelson's Becoming Your Own Banker book, if you're willing to ask questions, genuine, honest questions that concern you, if you are willing to question your thinking, to learn, if you're a coachable and a teachable person, you're open-minded to the paradigm shift that IBC is. And again, I'm not saying it's a one-time event. I've had multiple instances over the past several years where I've just caught on to something about the infinite banking concept. And Nash did say that IBC is more caught than taught. But if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to have a discussion, if that impetus is there, and I believe that's what's allowed for our success and our progression where we're at in practicing the infinite banking concept, is we just wanted to. We had the desire to be independent and autonomous and make these kinds of decisions for ourselves. We benefited from the system and everything that we discuss here on the channel. And that would be another part. Willing to dive in on the channel, to learn, to be able to roll over in your mind the things that are discussed here, because They're not the things that were taught by our parents, our preachers, our teachers, our neighbors, our co-workers. It all started right here. You know, again, Nash said that he brought scale to this old concept. You know, insurance has been around for hundreds of years. What Nash brought to that was scale, systematized scale. So, again, on this channel, you're not seeing t-shirts, you're not seeing ads, sponsorships. We're just private individuals looking to coach, educate, provide information so that you can make a decision on whether you would like to become your own banker or not. Either way is fine with us. But for those that have eyes to see, ears to hear, that get this enough to know, that have vetted it enough to know that they want to start, then don't hesitate. Give us a call. Send us an email. You can reach me at 828-817-4223. You can email durhamtalents@gmail.com. Think of a number for yourself, how much you'd like to pay yourself. Again, it'll probably be more ambitious than your first impulse, more imaginative than that. It'll be reasonable. It'll be logical. Read Nash's book, Becoming Your Banker. Read his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. Listen to his audios. Listen to this channel. Let's have a conversation. Again, you can start wherever you want to start with that. Make that choice for yourself. But make that choice to find out whether this is for you. We wish you the absolute best. We look forward to our next video and our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care.